Okay, so welcome today to using Box Cryptor to encrypt files in the cloud. And this is a low-cost program that allows you essentially to do exactly what it says. Encrypt files in the cloud, but I will show you how it works. So if you're online with us today, if you want to be able to view my screen, what you're doing is you're looking at kind of a still shot. My head should be where it says CBA Law Practice in blue. Underneath there, if you click on the link to materials, so it says bookmark, email questions, materials, click on materials and then you'll see a link to view presenter screen. That should open in a new tab or a new window. If you close the original window that you used when you registered and logged in, you'll lose the audio. So please just click view presenter screen and have it open in a new tab or new window, and don't close the old one or you'll lose the audio. But you can always go back and log in and start over if you lose it. So I want to just quickly tell you about what's coming up from the Law Practice Management and Technology. We've got in April, Brett Burney is coming back. He's going to do iPad for litigators, so a 3-hour iPad for litigators, and he's going to do an iPad favorite apps. So he's going to dig into some of the favorite apps and really show you how to get the most out of some of the favorites out there. They're going to do an e-discovery for small cases program in the middle of the day. Brett and May Carpenter, who is here and did Excel for us, they're going to do a small e-discovery for small cases. Will Hornsby's going to come and do a setting up a niche practice. So that's kind of, I knew an attorney in Maryland who was the fun lawyer, and he represented traveling carnivals. So setting up a niche that sometimes people find that they fall into inadvertently. Some people do it on purpose, but he's going to talk about setting it up and also how to market it ethically and effectively. So we're looking for PR credit from that one. And Member Appreciation Week is coming up when we'll have the Tech and Business Expo Hall, and there will be lots of fabulous prizes and 2 free CLEs and free food and free. So, looking at getting started with Box Cryptor, the thing that you do is you go to the Box Cryptor website. Now, this isn't a downloaded application. It's something that you install on your desktop or your laptop, or it works with Macs, it works with PCs, it works with Linux boxes, it works with iPads, iPhones, Android devices. So pretty much there's a version for every device that you may have, and you'll understand why you may need to download it multiple times in order for it to be most effective. Just to show you on their website, one thing I want to mention, if you go to the download button for Box Cryptor, it does sit there and shriek, it's free, it's free. However, it's free for personal use. If you want to use it in a practice, it's probably considered business use. So they have a free version, the unlimited personal and the unlimited business. Unlimited business is $100 for the one install, and then you can install it in multiple places after that, because you'll get a license that lets you install it everywhere you need it. And one of the things that you get with the unlimited business is the ability to have multiple devices and drives encrypted, and what that means, and I'll show you, is that you can have, if you have SkyDrive, if you have Google Drive, if you have Dropbox, if you have a bunch of different places you store documents online, you can create as many encrypted folders on all of those that you want. So if you have a box.net account where you share documents with clients, you can create an encrypted folder there. But if you store your own stuff in Dropbox, you can create an encrypted folder there. But I'll show you what that looks like. It's AES-256 encryption, so good strong encryption. And also with the unlimited business, you get file name encryption. So if you wanted to encrypt the file names themselves, because sometimes, you know, if you put the client's name in the file name, that could be considered confidential and something that you don't necessarily want to put up in the cloud where people can see it. So those are the things to consider. But again, with downloaded software, it's a 99 once price, not 99 a year or a month or whatever. So I'm so used to cloud applications where you're paying per user per month that you almost forget, oh yeah, once you buy this, you have it, it's yours to keep, and it's one single price. So once you go to the website and you go to the download page, then you just pick which version you want. So if you are Windows XP 7 or 8 user, then you choose the first one. If you're doing Windows RT, which is the mobile version of Windows 8, you choose that. Mac, Linux, iPhone, and iPad, and Android. And the Android and iPhone and iPad can come later. In fact, when you do the installation, the next thing it wants you to do during the installation process is put it on your phone. So it'll remind you again. So you click it, it downloads a little file. You open up the file, you tell it to run, and then you're going to get a wizard. And the wizard is just going to be a series of screens that walks you through installation. You've all installed software at some point or another probably, so it's nothing new in terms of what you're looking at. So you get a screen that says welcome to Box Cryptor, and you have two options. One is create a new Box Cryptor folder, and that's the one you want to choose because you're just installing it for the first time. So you will choose the create a new Box Cryptor folder, and then it will ask you, and when you're creating, you're setting up Box Cryptor, you have two things that you're creating. One is a folder on Dropbox or SkyDrive or Google Drive or whatever you're using, and you're creating a virtual drive on the machine. And I'll explain a little bit more about that. So at this point, it's asking you, where do you want to create the folder, choose location, and you click which one of these services, Dropbox, Google Drive, SkyDrive. Now, this is assuming that you've downloaded the synchronization ability between Dropbox and your machine. So you've downloaded Dropbox, so you see Dropbox as a folder in your local file system. Same thing for Google Drive or SkyDrive. So I don't have SkyDrive downloaded. I can save things up to it by going to the SkyDrive site and uploading it, but I don't have a local copy on my desktop to sync, and so that actually is a grayed out option for me. So then you can also change the name of your folder to something other than Box Cryptor if you want to. I left it as Box Cryptor. This custom, I think this is for if you have a large network where you can get at things through a VPN, you could actually encrypt folders on your web-based server locally, but it's something that a lot of you will have a chance to use. So the next thing is you choose a drive letter, and that's going to create your virtual drive. So remember I said you have a folder. It creates a folder in Dropbox. And how many of you have Dropbox? So we use Dropbox as the example. So it's creating a folder in Dropbox called Box Cryptor. The next thing it's going to do is create a virtual drive on, in this case, my laptop or on my phone or my laptop at home. And you know how in a Windows system you have drive A, which is usually a removable media. C is your primary hard drive, and then if you're on a network, there's a lot of other lettered drives. This one defaults to the letter Z. So you're creating basically for your local drive, what's on your machine, you're going to have a C drive and a Z drive, and Z is just on C, and it's called a virtual drive. That's probably more than you ever need to know about it. Just know that all of a sudden you're going to see a new drive called Z. So the next thing you do is set up and create your password, and there's a note, and it's not highlighted in yellow. I highlighted this in yellow for you, and these materials are, if you go to the CBA website where you registered, you can go and download this PowerPoint and I'll walk you back through it. It says it is absolutely not possible to restore or reset your password in case you do not remember it anymore. If you forget this password, the data of your encrypted files will be lost. So yeah, Ouch is right. If you lose the password, you can't restore it. So you cannot lose the password. You also need to use a good password. So something that can't be hacked through. 12 plus characters, symbols, uppercase and lowercase. I've now read that I used to do a password where it had a capital letter at the beginning, and it was a kind of phrase that I can remember, and an exclamation point at the end, and I thought I was doing good. But evidently it's not that strong to do that, so you're supposed to mix it all up in between. So at any rate, you type out your good strong password, you reconfirm it, and then you make sure that that box is checked that says remember this password, so you don't have to type the password in every time you need to decrypt your files. And remember, it's on your local machine, so it's not being decrypted in the cloud, it's being decrypted on your machine. As long as you don't lose control of your machine, you should be able to let it remember your password for you. So you can do that, but also write it down somewhere, and you know, don't put it on a sticky note and stick it on your computer, but do, you know, if you have a little notebook that lives in a locked desk drawer or something like that, you could always put it in there, because it's one of those things where. But I'm also going to show you my other tactic that I'm going to suggest for your files, and when we store them in Box Cryptor or Dropbox in the encrypted folder, is that you make a copy, and one's called Encrypted, so you don't actually keep your one and only copy of a document in a place where if you lose your password, you lose the document. So those are my notes. The files must be stored in the virtual drive and accessed via the virtual drive. So if you're taking a file that you've created and saving it into your Box Cryptor folder in Dropbox, it doesn't encrypt it. The only way you encrypt a file, and I'll show you this, is if you save it in your new virtual drive, your new virtual Z drive that's called Box Cryptor. When you move files into that, it's encrypted. When you look at your Dropbox folder, there will be a file there. You can see the file name, and if you double click on it, you can't open it. The files have to be encrypted and decrypted through that Z virtual drive. When I show it to you, it will not seem as complicated as it may now. Don't forget your password. You can set up install Box Cryptor on other machines and devices so that you can decrypt your files. So again, if you've got another machine at home, or another one in a different office or something, you can decrypt them there. What I'm suggesting is when you name the files, create the file, and then when you're ready to encrypt it, save the file as whatever the file name is _encrypted. And that way you know, if you need to make a copy, you know, so you basically have a copy of the encrypted file, and then you're saving the unencrypted file locally so that you have a copy of it that you can get.
So when you save it to Z, you say blah, 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 encrypted.
Correct. So when you save it to Z, add the encrypted into the file name, because that's what's syncing with your Dropbox. And the whole point of this, I should back up and remind you what the whole point of this is that if you have very confidential information in your files, such as credit card information or social security numbers or underage children's names in, you know, like the Ohio rape case that just came up, those kinds of things, that information is very sensitive. You probably want to make sure that it's well protected. And if you're saving it in Dropbox, the files aren't encrypted at where it lives in Dropbox, and someone could, and it's probably all seen this in the news, people are trying to hack Dropbox, Facebook, Google, all of these big services, Amazon, all the time. That's all they're doing all day long, is trying to figure out how to get into those files. So by using these services that are primarily focused on consumer use, for business purposes, it can and is being done, but you can add a layer of protection to your files when they need to be. One thing to note is plain text files, unless you get the business version, plain text files are not encrypted. That's how your file name is not encrypted unless you have it encrypt. And the unlimited business version does encrypt the file names. So, to get into a little bit more detail, with a paid version, you can have multiple spaces. So like I said, for me, I have Dropbox and Google Drive. And if I wanted to create a synchronized encrypted folder in both of those, then with the paid version, I just go into the advanced settings and create another drive. So you can see here, and I'm actually going to go into Box Cryptor. So here's Box Cryptor, and I'll kind of try to make it a little bigger. It has this advanced mode, and when you click on it, it says, "Are you sure you want to enable advanced mode? Warning, we only recommend the advanced." It's not that big of a deal. You can click yes. I was a little disturbed because I was like, oh, I'm not an experienced user. Should I click on this? But I didn't blow anything up. So, so if I had the pay version, and since I'm doing this for demonstration purposes, I feel like it's personal use to a certain extent, and I'm going to use the free version. But if I wanted to add another one and I have the pay version, you just go in and click add, and it literally walks you through that same process that you did before to create this one. And you choose, in my case, I've got this one set up for Dropbox, so I would set it up for Google Drive. So you can have as many encrypted folders as you want to, and you just basically walk through the wizard again. Now, if you're using the free version and you want to be able to add another drive or another folder, you would just toggle between the two. So say you've got Box Cryptor and you're using Dropbox, and then you decide for whatever reason that you don't like Dropbox anymore and you're going to use SugarSync, or you're going to use Google Drive, or you're going to use Box or something like that. But you're also still kind of invested in Dropbox because you have a bunch of stuff over there and you haven't bothered to move it. So in that case, you can kind of toggle back and forth between the two. You select this one and you click remove. It doesn't actually completely remove it. Then you would click add, and then so that one was for Dropbox. I'm going to add my Google Drive and click next. There's the Z drive, so that's all good, and label the Box Cryptor in, so that's all good, and click finish. And then it wants me, I of course kind of already walked through this, so I'll put in my my new password for Google Drive, which is, and now you can see it's Google Drive Box Cryptor. If I want to switch back, I click remove, I click add, I go to Dropbox, and I put in my Dropbox password.
Is it a separate password for?
They are each has their own password. Now, I suppose you could use the same one. I didn't test that.
Okay, but it's already a Dropbox.
Correct. So the question was, A, am I using two different passwords to create the folder in Google Drive and in Dropbox, which I am. I'm using two separate passwords. The other question is it the same password I use for Dropbox? It's not. And I probably wouldn't want to do that, but if you feel like you have the world's strongest password, then it's not going to mess it up if you used the same password. So if you created a 25-character passphrase that you feel is really, really good, it's not going to know, and it's not going to stop you. So if that makes any sense. So hope I put it in there right. And now you'll see I'm back to Dropbox. So again, this is really more for people using the free version. If I decided to move to Dropbox as my primary, right now I probably use Google Drive more than Dropbox personally because I like the collaboration aspects of Google Drive. Of course, keep in mind, when I encrypt these things in the folder in Google Drive, there is no more collaboration. The other thing that I've read, it doesn't say anything on the Box Cryptor site about it, but I did read somewhere that if you were using a shared Dropbox folder with a client, they could install Box Cryptor. You could give them the password. I don't recommend this at all, but if you were going to figure out workarounds, you can't both open the file at the same time. So I think there's much safer, better ways of collaborating than using Dropbox shared folders or trying to encrypt them with Box Cryptor. But just because I heard someone talk about this scenario, I wanted to make it clear what you can do. So that's how you do that. The other thing is installing it on another machine. When you do the install, you download the program, you hit run, and then when you start up the little wizard, remember when we initially installed on this computer, we said create a new Box Cryptor folder. Every subsequent installation on another machine, you're going to say open a Box Cryptor folder. So you already have one installed one place. Now you're opening a Box Cryptor, and basically you'll walk through the exact same steps as you did before and use the same password that you created before. And basically it knows that it's just another instance of Box Cryptor. Similarly, I didn't bring my phone down here, but I downloaded the Android app. And all it does is it says, what do you want to access? I said Dropbox, put in the password, and then I get this, and I can see files and things in my Android phone. Yes?
Question.
That's a good question. So he asked if everything stored in Dropbox is going to be encrypted or just what you associate. And it's just what you associate. It has to go into basically your virtual drive, and then your virtual drive creates a folder in Dropbox. So only things that are stored in the virtual drive show up in Dropbox in the Box Cryptor folder. Everything else that you're saving in Dropbox is wide open.
And is it just a click and drag to put it in that
It's a click and drag, and I'll actually show you a couple of use cases. In fact, right now, again, with the materials that are online, I've got this using Box Cryptor 1, 2, 3. It is literally, once you get it set up and installed, it's easy to use. You just have to kind of get it in terms of the concept. So I'm going to go into Windows Explorer, and I actually created a favorite up here so it wouldn't be all the way. My Z drive is down here, so I wanted to make it easier for me, so I just created a favorite. So this is a folder full of files that I've created, and it doesn't matter, so I'm going to open one. And so this is an article I'm written. Say this is a brief you're drafting or a motion or something else, and you're working on this and you want to save it to Dropbox to work on it later at home, but you recognize that it has a bunch of social security numbers in it. So you think, I better encrypt this. So probably the easiest way to go about this is go to your file, go to Save As. This is where we're using my little suggested trick. You don't have to do this, but just so I'll know that this is encrypted, I'm going to append _encrypted. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it in Box Cryptor in my little virtual drive. So saving it in Box Cryptor. And I'm going to close this. And then I will show you. So here is Dropbox, and here's the box Cryptor folder in Dropbox that it creates when you do the installation. And here is the tools for collaboration encrypted. Now, if I double click on this, what do you think will happen?
Ask you if you want to unencrypt it.
Okay, ask me if I want to unencrypt it. So I'm in Dropbox, in the encrypted box Cryptor folder, and let's see what happens if I double click it. It says the file tools for collaboration encrypted cannot be opened because there's a problem with the contents. Well, that is not a very helpful message, I must admit. But in fact, what it is encrypted, and it will not decrypt it if you open it in Dropbox. So what you have to do, and it'll say, do you want to try to recover it? And you can sit there and try to recover it and do other things, and it won't because it's encrypted. So what you have to do is you have to open the file from, again, your encrypted drive, the box Cryptor virtual drive. So then if I go to Tools for Collaboration, so this is where all the encryption and decryption occur, is in that Z drive.
So
That's correct. So that's why you have to install box Cryptor on any machine that you want to be able to decrypt a file. Otherwise, it'll be in Dropbox, but until you go to a place that has your the box Cryptor installed, you can't unencrypt it. It lives in Dropbox in a folder. It's encrypted until you decrypt it on your local machine or on your phone or on your iPad. That's why you can install it in so many places. Does that make sense? So when it's in Dropbox, it's encrypted, and it doesn't ask you for a password or anything else, because encryption's a little bit more complicated than just password protection, and so there's a series of processes going on locally on your machine to encrypt and decrypt the file. So it's not going to happen, at least not this one in the cloud at all. So it does have that local connection. So that's basically it. I will walk through that again just so you'll see. So we'll pick, and it works on any type of file that I've tried, at least, the primary Microsoft Office, the Apple documents, PDFs, anything like that. Anything that you dump over into the Z drive will be encrypted. So we'll take this one. It's a PDF. I'll open it up. I'm going to hit save as PDF, and this again is just because I'm paranoid. And I'm saving it in the Z drive. And then if I go back and look in Dropbox, and there's the box Cryptor folder. It's still blue because it's a bigger file, so it takes a little longer. Now it's green. And if I double check it, it says it can't open it. So in order to open it, I have to go back to Z and double click it, and it opens right up. That is correct. So if you go to your friend's office and you want to get the file from Dropbox, and that person not only doesn't have box encryptor, but doesn't have a way for you'd have to log in as yourself as well, then you can't get your file. So, again, it's good encryption, but it does not work for every use case. And you can use a password protection on a document that travels with the document. It's not as, but the difference between password protecting a document and using encryption is if you password protect a Word document or a PDF document, and you go online and you do a search for can't get into password protected Word document, you will get 45 different programs that are free that you can download that'll crack the password to get into Word, because people forget their Word passwords and their Acrobat passwords all the time. So they're not really encrypted. It's easy to crack the password. It actually is turning the data behind the file name into scrambled information that has to be descrambled on your machine. Yes, sir.
So with Dropbox, you have to set up without.
Box Cryptor, there's no username.
But then if you go to someone else's office and they do have Box Cryptor,
That's a good question.
could you?
If someone else has Box Cryptor and you're able to log into your, but you won't have the local folder on their machine, so I don't think it'll work at all.
Okay.
Because they're going to be, even if they had Box Cryptor, they're syncing with their Dropbox version. So if you go and log in, you're logging into Dropbox on the cloud, not the local version. So
You'd have to log in on their guest coverage under their Wi-Fi.
right,
With your own machine.
right. Now, if you had your own machine, you're fine. That's not a problem. It's if you don't bring your own machine, then you're not going to be able to get access to your documents. But if, the nice thing is, because they have the iPad app and they have the phone app, you can get the documents. And if somebody has wireless printing, you can open the document up, send it to their printer. A lot of printers will let you, or send it to their wireless scanner, stuff like that. So, again, it just depends. And I'm not suggesting that you probably have to encrypt every single document. Again, it depends on the level of sensitivity of the information in it, but it's something good to know. I was downstate doing a program for one of the county bars, and a young attorney came up to me and said, do you think it's inappropriate that I have federal evidence in PDF files saved to Dropbox so I can access them easily from my iPad at home? So he has PDFs that are being used in federal cases as evidence in an unencrypted Dropbox folder so he can get them on his iPad. I don't know. It's like, how sensitive is the information on those files? He's like, oh, they're pretty sensitive. I was like, yeah, I'm not entirely sure that that's a good idea. I said you could password protect them, or you can use something like this and just give them another level of protection. So in the PowerPoint, I did the kind of save a file in your Box Cryptor drive. The file will synchronize with the folder in Dropbox, but you can't open the file from the Dropbox folder because it's now encrypted. So go back and open the encrypted files through Box Cryptor, and that decrypts them. So that's basically the 1, 2, 3 of it. And then I put in, and again, the materials, some resources. There's a user manual for Windows. There's a user manual for Mac. And then there's an article from PC World that kind of explains it in a different way than the user manual. Same information, different kind of way at providing the information, which I actually found kind of useful, because at first it's a little confusing. It's a very simple product, but somehow yet a little confusing. So I told you this probably wouldn't take an hour, because it is what it is. It doesn't do a lot more than that. But it's out there, and there are other similar type of products. There's a product called Secret Sync that does something similar to this. Then if you're using cloud storage and you're worried about people having access to your files, there is a service called SpiderOak. SpiderOak works very much like Dropbox, except that the files are encrypted in transit and in storage. They're encrypted before they leave your machine, and they're encrypted on the SpiderOak site.
What's that called?
It's called SpiderOak. So it removes this extra step of encrypting the documents. Now, SpiderOak, like Dropbox, allows you to share files with other people. If you use SpiderOak for sharing purposes, it decrypts the files. So, when you're dealing with really sensitive information, sharing files with people, all of a sudden that becomes really kludgy in terms of getting both people to decrypt files if you're using the cloud. So in that case, I look at things like extranets or something that you have more control over who has access to it, and probably not the level of visibility. So if you use something like Clio for practice management, they give you a little extranet so your clients can go in and access their documents. For one thing, it's just that client's documents, not making a choice about which document should be seen by which person, so it's a little bit easier to use. Plus, Clio has a much smaller footprint, so while that doesn't give you complete security, it's a little less obvious than people who are trying to attack Dropbox all the time because they know how many millions of documents are stored and the kinds of rewards they could reap if they could get into it. So,
just real quick,
sure.
When you were talking about setting up,
Yes. So if you want to be able to have a encrypted folder on Google Drive and an encrypted folder in Dropbox, then when you set up secret or Box Cryptor, you create two virtual drives. So you could use Z and Y, or Z and X. If you use the paid version, the $99 version, as you set them up, it'll show you have X number of virtual drives, so they're visible to you. And that's if a lot of people use multiple services. I do. Yes.
Question, I use Mozy.
That is a very good question. So the question is that he's using Mozy Pro as backup, and it's backing up all the files on your hard drive. And whether the encryption breaks, I suspect that it would be a good test. I don't know. I haven't tested it. I'm not entirely sure. It should back them up, but whether they're encrypted or not, you could always go into Mozy because you can log in over the web, go to the Z drive, get a file, try to open it, and see what happens. In theory, it should be the same as Dropbox. It won't open. And you have to open it on the machine where Box Cryptor is installed. But that's a theory because I haven't tested it.
You say text files do not get encrypted?
Text files do not get encrypted.
So what do you do if you have a data file that's an ASCII text?
That's a good question. If you have a data file that's ASCII text, then I suppose you could save it as RTF or something like that, something that doesn't have a TXT extension, and see if it gets encrypted or not. So like I said, it's not a perfect solution. It's a low cost and available and fairly easy solution. It's not going to work for every use case. There are things like TrueCrypt, which have more options at a file and folder level. You can encrypt thumb drives. You can encrypt external hard drives. You can do things like that. It's free and open source. It doesn't do so well at file level encryption. So this does a good job at file level encryption, but TrueCrypt is for, I think, has more use cases.